That song right there is my jam. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is another episode of Health Foods by Claudia, or Good Health by Claudia. It's a podcast, ladies and gentlemen, with me, Denny Schaffer, a production of Denny Radio, as you can see by my fancy virtual background there. Claudia, do you realize that we are on episode 95?
So exciting.
That is, we are just clicking these babies off. Lives are being changed. Lives are being saved. People are getting healthy. And it's all because of you, Claudia. And our viewers.
We're doing it as a team, man. We're doing it as a team.
We are. And all our viewers that I know right now are going to click share as you're watching, because it's always good to share these podcasts to get the information out to as many people as we possibly can.
Yes.
All right, we have a guest today. Let's welcome in Rick Simpson, the founder and CEO of Emerald Labs. And Rick is right there. Hello, Rick.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Welcome to the broadcast. All right, so you're in a T-shirt. It looks like you're outside. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm definitely not in the East Coast. I'm in Southern California.
Well,
and it's like 65 degrees out here.
That is really awesome. So you are the owner and CEO, family-owned, operated since you began in 1996, Emerald Labs. Tell us your story.
Yeah, and actually, 1996, that would make it a 30-year anniversary. It's our 25-year anniversary, because I started off as a manufacturing company, and then I bought Emerald Labs from another lady named Rita in 2001. So we decided to just round it to when I bought it, because it all changed when I bought it. So I guess, I don't know how much time you have, but I'll try and do this quickly. So I worked for a company called Mrs. Gooch's here in Southern California in 1983, owned by Sandy Gooch, Dan Bolin, and John Mormon. I was their employee of the year because I used to work there on my days off for free. I didn't care. I just wanted to be there because everybody thought like I did. And I used to roller skate to work on the beach, and I'd just work, and it was great. I loved working there. And then from there, I went to work for a vegetarian restaurant in Hermosa Beach, California. Learned I'm not a good waiter, so then I dropped a beer in a guy's lap and said, "This isn't for me." And then I went to work for a PhD biochemist in 1989, a guy named Dr. Marshall, and worked there for 4 years. And he actually was involved in the tryptophan issue back in the late 80s with a company called Shawadenko, introducing bacteria into their process and people getting eosinophilia myalgia syndrome. So the doctor I worked for, he actually was a runner. He got EMS in his lungs, and he said, this is never going to happen again. So he said, I'm going to buy a encapsulation machine and a blender and pill counter. And so in a little office in Torrance, California, he started manufacturing, and I ran his manufacturing company. So long story short, ended up marrying his daughter and quit. And it was just a thing where he was the kind of guy that thought he was the smartest guy in the room, and it was kind of all about him. And I just have a hard time. To me, it's all about the team. That's how it's always been for me.
Yes.
And I said, it's just time to go. So married his daughter in 1995 and started my company a year later. I remember telling her name's Julie. I told Julie, I said, if I could do this, I'd be in the 10% of people that love what they do, as opposed to the stat where 90% of people hate what they do. And she was like, okay, go ahead. And she's really smart. She has a master's in math. So she had a good job. I didn't make any money. She said, the ladies would appreciate this. She said, how long before you think you'll turn a profit? I said, like 1 year. So it was 7 years. 7 years later. So she was very gracious, and ended up manufacturing, and it was a lot of headaches, hard to start a business. Bought Emerald in 2001 from a lady that was synthesizing melatonin with her partner when melatonin was very expensive. But she ended up kind of letting the company die. And I just knew that I just wanted a list of health food stores, and I wanted some people that could sell it for me. And so with the sale of Emerald, I got a list of health food stores and 3 brokers. And one of those brokers today is my VP. Her name's Elaine. She made sure to tell me to mention we have 25-year anniversary, so I did that. So check, that's done.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's
thank
wonderful.
you. And I just, and we just built it one relationship at a time. I used to do a lot of dinner trains around the country, and I said, I build relationships one at a time, and I figured if I kept my head down long enough, eventually we'd get in the black, and it was a lot of years of difficulty, but it's good to be here. And you know, we have Mark Stengler. He's a doctor that formulates all of our products. He's a naturopathic medical doctor. We are the additive-free company. Being a manufacturer, I didn't want to put additives in my products. The reason for that is that I had young children, and I want to make products the way I would want them to be for my children, for my wife, for myself. And I've had people accuse me of being a liar, all kinds of things, saying, oh, they're really additives in the products. No, there really aren't. And the only reason I can do that is because I make my own products. Because everything from sourcing raw materials to finished goods, I do in-house. And because of that, I can keep additives out. But it is much more difficult to run the products in the encapsulation machinery because these additives are in there to deal with something called powder morphology, the way powder behaves when it's flowing into a capsule. So you have to run the machine slower. Some products are very sticky, like alpha lipoic acid is very sticky. Some are hygroscopic. They suck moisture from the air. That makes them sticky. So you just have to work around it. But I just did not want additives. And one of the real reasons is because mag stearate, lots of people said lots of things about mag stearate, good, bad, and different. Stearic acid is a naturally occurring component in nature. I understand that. However, stearic acid in this industry is manufactured from cottonseed oil, largely, which cottonseed oil is one of the most heavily pesticided, genetically modified organism crops out there. And I didn't want that in my products. And I assume consumers would prefer not to have that in their products. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world if it's in there. Mag stearate is usually in products at about 0.5%. It's a very small amount, but I'm kind of a perfectionist kind of guy, and I just wanted the cleanest products I could make. And so that's what we did. And so I tried to formulate as Marksman with Mark Stengler. I want to make clean products, and that's what we did. And here we are.
And here you are. That's a great story, and we're grateful you're here. Thank you for starting such a wonderful company. As you know, we're all about the independent companies that are producing product with integrity, with quality, and so we're grateful that you're on with us today. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a joy. Claudia and I were talking a little bit yesterday, and it's just having independence like you guys. This is like, to me, this is like the fabric of the country. Just, this is how small businesses, people just starting caring for their neighbors, people around them. And that's just a joy to be able to serve people like you guys and your customers. And I've always told people, look, anything we can do for you, I'm here to help you any way I can, because I was a sick kid. I would have been an ADHD kid. I used to take something called Senecot when I was a kid. I was a chronically constipated kid. I was very angry, and my mom got into health food in the 70s, I think. My first experience with health food was Cocoa Puffs when I was about 14 years old. My mom took a big tablespoon of bran flakes and went in my cereal, said, here, you need some fiber. And I was like, you've ruined it, And that was my first experience. That's all she knew was bran flakes, But it just changed my life. And that's why I have passion and conviction for the industry, because of what it did for me. And so this is a representation of my thankfulness to the industry and how we can serve people that don't know what to do.
So I have a question for you, Rick. So you've been doing this a long time. So when you started out and what you were dealing with then, and then now fast forward to 2026, how has the playing field, so to speak, changed from like regulation, FDA back then, and what you're dealing with currently in 2026?
Yeah, that's interesting. In the regulatory, in that context, there was old DSHEA, and for those people listening, DSHEA is the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. It's a federal regulation. There was early DSHEA in the 90s. That was their first kind of foray into this industry. Then there was secondary DSHEA, which pretty much put this industry on the same thing as a drug standard. If you're interested, it's called 21 CFR. CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. 21 CFR Part 111. The drug standard is 21 CFR Part 211. The only difference is between what companies like Pfizer and Squibb and all these companies have to do in their manufacturing, what we have to do, they have to do in-process testing. We do not have to do that. We have to test the incoming raw materials and the finished goods. And the reason that they do that is because the drugs, you have one component. You have 10 milligrams or 20, whatever it is. It's very easy to test that. In this industry, you have food components, which are much more complex to test. But that is the only difference between manufacturing from a drug company to us. So, and it is very, very rigorous. I am audited by the FDA. I am audited by the state of California. I am audited by the county of LA. And my quality guy, we just had an FDA audit, and we passed well. There's always, with bureaucrats, there's always things they find. So people say, we've had FDA audits, and they call it a 483. It's where you get whatever little, violations you get, and you say, oh, this barrel was in the wrong place, or oh, whatever it was. But, bureaucrats always have to find something. And so you always will get a 483. And within 15 days, you give a correction letter. You tell them what you've done to correct it. And that's it. But I will say, when the guy came out, I always encourage my QA guy. I said, ask them how we're doing in relation to the big companies. And he actually said, I was surprised. He goes, I've been to Pfizer. And he goes, your company is actually cleaner than Pfizer. It's better than Pfizer. And, and we're not perfect. But I just try and do the best job I can, and I was really happy to hear that he said we're doing really well compared to the other companies that he audits.
So I think it's very important what you're talking about, this issue of how regulated our industry truly is. And the companies that are doing things right because they care, like yours, and like many, the guests we have on, our industry is always accused of, the FDA, we're an unregulated industry. Right. And it's a ridiculous statement. It doesn't hold water anymore because we have all this regulation, and you're here as an example sharing that. So I think it's really important what you just shared, because people need to get that out of their head, that we're just a bunch of whatever, weirdos, hippies hanging out in stores, producing product and hanging out in stores. I mean, this is a big deal. So I appreciate the efforts that you're putting into the quality of your company. But I just want you to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, people just don't understand that. And they do think we're a bunch of cowboys, and because this industry is born out of the hippies of the 60s, but it's not that way anymore. We are on the same standard as the drug companies. So I agree with you. You just need to kind of take that out of your mind, and that is not reality.
Yeah. So, but I would like you to repeat for a moment. You talked about, because we talk about DSHEA on the podcast to help educate the country so they understand that. But you said something about say it again, the second part of DSHEA. What did you say?
Well, there was early DSHEA, which was in the 90s, which was regulations that were brought down from, Code of Federal Regulations. That was very different than they updated DSHEA in about, I don't remember the exact year, it was 2004, 2005, right in there. And it was much more robust and rigorous of what they required, because they realized that the early DSHEA did not address a lot of the issues in the industry. So the area that especially was addressed was all the testing that's required. So, and the specifications in testing are, in this industry, are identity, strength, purity, and composition. That's what the FDA wants you to test for. And there's all kinds of specifications that have to be put into the process from the beginning of receiving the raw materials to the finished good going out the door. And there's different ways you can handle it. Like I do my micro testing on my finished goods. Some companies do it on the incoming raw materials. And I said, look, I could do it on the incoming raw materials, but it's going to tie up the raw materials for 3 to 5 days because you got to grow yeast and mold. I'd rather do it on the finished good, but the risk is mine, because if I blend up 20 ingredients and only one of them has some micro contamination, I've infected all the other raw materials in there, and that's my money that's going down the tube. But I know my vendors very well, and I've never had a micro issue in all these years. So that's my risk, but like I said, I just don't have an issue. So I do it on the end, because then it's much easier for my throughput, because for health food stores, if I tell them, say, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of, osteobone or something, they're not happy. You guys aren't happy. You're like, look, my shelves are empty. What are we supposed to do? So,
Right.
so it's, so you have to put on your business cap, you got to put on all these different hats when you're processing to make sure people can get the right products, the quality products, and the right timing.
So you brought up osteobone, that formula, which we have a picture of it. It's a great product. And if we could talk for a minute about the form of calcium you have in this product, because it's my personal favorite. I learned about it many years ago, how it's much more bioavailable than other forms of calcium. So can you talk about that for a moment?
Sure, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the formula as a whole. And Claudia and I were chatting yesterday. I'm not a biochemist. I'm not a chemist. I hang around people that are smarter than me. That's how I get to be smarter. And I ask lots of questions. So just know that going in. But the calcium we actually use 3 different forms of calcium in here. And the reason I did that, I didn't just use the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, which is I think what you're referring to, Claudia. But I wanted to put different forms of calcium also because sometimes the body uses calcium in different ways. I mean, the way it's uptaken in the bloodstream can be different, and some are compromised in their ability to uptake things. So I said, we're going to put albion chelated, bisglycinate chelate buffered, and also calcium citrate in there, along with the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite. The lion's share of the calcium is the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite because that is considered by many one of the premier forms of calcium. There's a guy named Jeff Bland. He's a PhD biochemist. He's been in this. Jeff Bland, I mean, he's older now, but very well respected. And he used to help formulate certain brands, and he used the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite. So we use that for that reason, and we're very confident in this formula's ability to be able to help you as your bone integrity. You have loss as you get older. So I have to tell you a quick side story. My youngest daughter is engaged to a chiropractor, and he's 29 years old. And he goes, I've been taking the osteobone. He goes, I feel so strong when I take that. I go, dude, you're 29. You don't need osteobone. He goes, but I feel great when I take it. And I'm like, great, man. I'm glad it's helping you. So, but anyway, I want to talk about the formula just a little bit, if you don't mind. We use all the albion chelated minerals except for the microcrystalline hydroxyapatite and calcium citrate.
So tell everybody what that means, the albion minerals, if you would please.
Yeah. Albion is a company. It's actually been bought by another company now, but the quality is the same. But Albion has been considered the gold standard in mineral chelates for years. And all minerals, if you take like calcium citrate, you have elemental calcium, then you have citric acid, you have a mineral bonded to an acid. Well, the chelation process, the old adage was, in the Latin, it's like a claw. They're bound together inextricably so they can be uptaken into the bloodstream, because it's not what you consume in your mouth, it's what you actually get into your bloodstream that matters. So Albion is really considered the gold standard in mineral chelates. Fully reacted. Some companies, they shorten the reaction process, and you as the consumer are the ones that suffer because you don't get the same amount in your bloodstream. And then we use the K2 I want to talk about. That particular K2 is a company called Delta Vital. I met them, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago at a trade show, at a raw materials trade show, and they said, we have done tremendous testing on our K2's ability to not degrade over time. And they have done a lot of landmark research. So their K2 is much more expensive, but we use it because K2 is a very volatile compound, and the Delta Vital will, what's listed there, you will get in the formula. Because, it can be good when you actually manufacture it, but then, a year later, it's degraded to a point where you're not getting the same quantity that's on the label. Now, that's not appropriate for the FDA, but that's functionally what happens because it's so volatile. Then we also use Mariva phytosome, which is a turmeric root extract. I just want to talk about that briefly because Mariva, according to Mark Stengler and many others, is really considered the gold standard in turmeric extracts. Turmeric and curcuminoids require a phospholipid to be effectively uptaken in the bloodstream. So people are like, well, can I just put more turmeric on my food? It's like, sure, but you're not going to get any in your bloodstream. And so the Mariva actually has phosphatidylcholine bonded at the polar head to their curcuminoid, and they've done human clinical research to make sure it is effectively uptaken into the bloodstream. And Mark is, I call him Mark, I should call him Dr. Stengler, but he's Mark to me. My daughter, I tell you, I'm all about the stories. My youngest daughter, this is just between us. All you people listening, just between us, okay? So she calls him Marky Mark. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he lets you get away with that. She goes, hey, Marky Mark. And I'm like, I can't call him Marky Mark. I mean, come on, but anyway, she can get away with it. So he loves her. So anyway, but anything Mark puts in the formulas, he really wants human clinical studies wherever he can get them, because that is the gold standard of qualifying the uptake of the ingredient. I mean, animal studies, those are certainly better than no studies, but human studies is really what Mark wants. So those are the raw materials he looks for. So with the Vital Delta, the Mariva Vitasome, that's what you have. So anyway, just in my opinion, a great formula, and not because of me, but because of Mark, and because he has clinical experience with these formulas. These are the formulas he uses in his clinical setting every day. He has an active clinical practice here in Encinitas, Southern California. And anytime a formula, I can call him and say, hey, Mark, how's the osteobone working? He goes, oh, it's working pretty good on patients, and he runs blood work. So these are really clinically validated formulas.
So I just want to talk about you. First of all, I want to ask Denny. Denny, did you understand what he was talking about because we want to make sure everybody understands. So did you understand what he was saying about the turmeric and the curcuminoids? And
yes.
Okay,
yes.
good. Because basically, is it proper to say? Is it accurate to say it's attached to fatty acids, so it has better absorption? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you good people could think of it. You need a fat present, but you need a specific kind of fat. But yes.
So I want to just ask you about the K2, because of course there's a lot of activity with K2 now, and it's interesting because in many of the companies are doing different levels of K2. And I've asked some, I'm like you, I'm not a biochemist, but I've picked everybody's brain for the last 50 years that I know, so I can understand it and learn it, and we can properly educate our customers. So K2, some companies have 45 micrograms, and some companies have 2,500 micrograms.
Right.
And that's a big range.
Yeah.
And we always want to do things responsibly. So we have a doc that puts sends a lot of his patients to us with that 2,500 microgram. But I'm just wondering, you said K2 is it an unstable nutrient? Is that what you're saying?
Well, as a raw material, being unstable is not the end of the world, but it's going to degrade. Like if you take a mineral, if you put 100 milligrams of calcium microcrystalline hydroxyapatite in a capsule, 2 years later, it's going to be 100 milligrams.
Right.
Vitamin D is another volatile compound. Beta carotene is a volatile compound. They degrade much faster. The fats probably degrade the fastest, and K2 especially, in my experience, I should say, this is not based on some scientific data. This is just based on research. Years ago, I worked with a joint doctor. Orthopedic surgeon. Sorry, orthopedic surgeon. I'm 60 years old. I don't, we all do. I will do great. I do the best I can. But anyway. But I made a product for him. I actually made 3 products for him for his clinic, and one had K2 in it. I just remember lab testing it, and the degradation of the K2 was severe in that formula, and I always remembered that. And when Delta Vital came out, I was like, okay, this is what I've been looking for, something that's standardized, that's stable. And, the nice thing in this industry is there are always companies, whether it's here in the U.S. or in Japan or in Korea, that are developing better forms of nutrients, and there's just constant research going on, and that's why it's so nice to have somebody like Dr. Stengler that's always looking at the journals, reading the articles, and even sometimes Mark, he'll read something and say, oh, I need this, and I'm like, the industry's not even making that yet. They did the research, but now you got to let the industry catch up to actually make the raw material in a quantity where we can actually use it. But there's just a lot of great research and execution of better raw materials happening in this industry constantly. So,
all right, you know what? We're starting to run out of time, Claudia. So is there anything else we want to ask Rick before we let him go?
I just want to say I'm glad we talked about the bone product, because it's a wonderful product. And I think it's fair to say many people have bone health issues. Their bone has been degrading for a long time for numerous reasons. So this idea of having a quality product that can actually truly support bone health, it's wonderful. So, thank you.
If I can just tell you people, it's like there are answers for you. Talk to Claudia, go in the store. There are a lot of answers. You don't have to, prescription meds aren't the end of the world, but that should be your last choice, not your first choice. It's like, you know, there's sometimes you have to take them, but exhaust all the other possibilities first, because there's answers for you. So,
well, I always say nature's pharmacy is the best pharmacy. So, you know, it should be the first place we look. And so we're very grateful you're here with us today. Excuse me. And thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for bringing integrity to the industry. We very much appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's great visiting with you guys today.
Thank you. Many blessings to you.
Okay. Bye, you guys.
And congrats on his big anniversary this year.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That's right. Congratulations on 25 years. Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right, Claudia, just like always, I'm giving you the last word.
Well, thank you. You know, we're grateful to be here every week with you guys. We're grateful that so many people are watching, tuning in, and want to learn. This is what warms my heart. There are so many people in this country that truly want to learn a different way to approach their health. They want to understand a different conversation. I'm grateful so many people are looking for better options for their own health rather than just running to the meds. So keep up the good work, you guys. And remember, learn it, use it, embrace it in baby steps. And that's how, when it becomes a part of your life, you really experience these products. That's when you really learn how important nature's pharmacy and all these natural things are. So thank you for being with us. And as always, just want to remind everybody, there's a lot of love in this world. There's a lot of goodness. Focus on your blessings, see the beauty right before you, and stay in the gratitude of things. That's where our peace is. So many blessings to everybody. Peace.